Hi, we're going to start making our clay rattle. The first thing, you don't need a huge amount of clay, so just grab a small amount of clay. You don't want your rattle to be super huge. You want it to be pretty small. The first thing that you want to do is you want to wedge your clay. Remember, wedging your clay, push, turn, push, turn. You're trying to get any air bubbles out because you don't want air bubbles because then it would possibly explode in the kiln, and that's not good. All right, I'm going to divide that clay into two, and then what I'm going to do is I'm kind of rolling it in a ball. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. All right, you can see there's a crack there, so I'm going to kind of smooth that crack. And I'm going to roll this one in a ball. And for this rattle, we're going to use the pinch pot technique. And you might have done the pinch pot way back in elementary school, making like a little bowl. But we're going to pick one of your three drawings for your pinch pot. And I kind of am a fan of Mr. Owl here, so that's the one I think I was going to do. I kind of like the hedgehog too. I definitely don't think the frog fits the criteria. So remember, your criteria is it needs to have fur, feathers, or scales. And that way you can show the texture, which is one of your criteria as well. All right, so I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to press it down into this ball of clay, okay, creating kind of a hole like that. Then I want to pinch. And you want to pinch so that the walls thicknesses are not thicker than the width of your thumb. If they are, what can happen is it can blow up in the kiln if it's too thick. So we want to be careful that the walls are not too thick. Okay? So I've got that. This is kind of like the bowl that I said you probably made back in elementary school and you were super proud to take it home. Now you're going to take that other ball of clay and do the same thing. So we're basically starting off with making two bowls. Press your thumb, and then you're pinching and squeezing. So remember, the rule of thumb is it needs to be no thicker than the width of your thumb. All right, if you're experiencing, like right here, some cracking, that tells me my clay is starting to get a little bit dry. So remember, you want to wrap that up really good and add some water to it, especially your extra clay. Right now I'm able to pinch and squeeze that together and get rid of that crack, but that's a good indicator. Like if your projects, your clay is starting to crack, that means you need to manage your clay a little bit better and poke the holes in it like I showed and add water to it. All right, so I've got two, and this is I'm gonna score and slip these together to be the body. I want to round this out just a little bit more because I want my owl to be just a little bit wider. So I'm going to pinch this just a little bit more. Okay. So now, if you're at home, I could use a toothpick to score. And scoring is basically, it's like making hashtags, tic-tac-toe marks. Okay, it's roughing up the edges. You could use a fork if you don't have a toothpick. Fork would do the same thing. Your pencil. Okay, lots of different choices. I'm going to do that on the other one as well. So I'm roughing up those edges. Then the next thing, is I'm going to take that slip, that mixture of clay and water. I can use the popsicle stick, and I'm putting that in the grooves. It acts like a glue. It's like a piece of Velcro. It's how they kind of attach. The Velcro attaches. Same thing with when you score and put the slip. Don't skip the slip. Okay, kids who skip the slip, their projects tend to fall apart and then they kind of whine, why did that happen? And usually when they fall apart, I can look at it and go, well, I can tell you didn't score and slip. So now the next thing that I'm doing is I'm taking my thumb and I'm pushing it up like that to seal the seam all the way around. So it's kind of like this little egg shape. But before I do that, if we're making a rattle, we got to put something in there. So I'm going to take some extra clay, and what I'm going to do is roll really small little circles that I'm going to put in there. So I just pinched off some clay here. I'm rolling in my hand. You could roll on the table like this. Really small pieces of clay. Because we won't have a rattle if we don't have some pieces of clay in there to make some sound. I'm going to do 5 or 6 of these. I think I'll do 6. Then you're going to need a small piece of paper towel. And you're going to wrap these 6 small little pieces of clay in the paper towel. So I got this small piece of paper towel. And I'm just going to put all of them in there and then kind of fold it like this and wrap it up. And the reason that I'm doing that is because if I just put them in there, what could happen is they could get stuck to the edges and then they won't rattle. So now I can close this up. And what'll happen when I fire this is that paper towel will burn off in the kiln. And we'll be left with those small little circles will create the sound when we shake it for the rattle. So don't forget to put the pieces in, otherwise we won't have a rattle. All right, don't worry too much about the shape because now I can kind of make the shape. Like I want this owl, this is more like of an egg shape, and I want the owl a little bit kind of more rounded, like a circle. So I'm just going to press down a little bit and make it more like a circle. And notice kind of how big this is. It's, maybe a baseball size, nothing bigger probably than that with your rattle. You don't need to use a ton of clay for this process, but you made your first pinch pad. Some things you need to know though. Right now, we have a trapped air inside here. If you leave this with trapped air, it's going to explode. So you have to have some type of hole eventually here in this so that it doesn't explode. So typically people put that hole on the bottom because you won't see it. And so then the next step is let's add that hole in the bottom so that it won't explode. And we don't forget to do that. So right now I'm smoothing this out. I'm getting it more of that circular shape that I wanted it. I'm going to take that toothpick. This will be the bottom. I'm making a hole in the bottom. So this will become the bottom of my owl. So that's the first step. in the pinch pot process.